presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction, which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city to make it a better place to live and work. Amen. We salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Mayor Elliott.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Martin. Counsel Mercier. That's 9 present.
9 present. The chair would like to recognize Councilor Leahy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence for Nancy Geary, wife of Bill Geary, aunt of City Clerk Michael Geary. I'd like to offer a moment of silence for Stella Sapasaris, sister of former school superintendent George Sapasaris, and offer a moment of silence for all Lowell residents that have passed away this week. Thank you.
Please rise and darken the chambers. May they rest in peace.
How's your daughter?
At this moment, I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules to bring in a citation that came in after the close of business on Friday. Motion by Council Mercier, seconded by Council Rourke. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? So ordered. Council Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has come to my attention that a very wonderful development happened a couple of weeks ago, and I was asked by family members if we could suspend the rules and allow this council to honor a very special person. Many times we read in the paper about all kind of tragedies and violence that happens. Very seldom do we read some things that make our city so proud, with special people that just pop up just anywhere and just do extraordinary things. This is why we're suspending the rules this evening, so that we can honor a very special person named Martin Bernier, who happened to be buying some auto parts on School Street, and a young man of 53 collapsed and his heart stopped and it flatlined. And this gentleman, instead of running out of the store getting hysterical, he massaged the heart and really pumped it back into shape and saved this gentleman's life. And I think that because of his family's gratitude, we're all here tonight with very special people that is saying, thank you, Martin, for what you have done. And when I called this gentleman, because this wouldn't happen if he didn't want to be honored, he said, oh, you don't have to do that for me. And I said, I know that, Martin, and you didn't have to do that for this gentleman either. So Eddie is very grateful, along with his family that are all here this evening, to say thank you very, very much. We're very proud. I know that you don't live here. You live in Taunton, Mass. The fact remains that everybody would wish that they had a Martin by their side if this should happen to them. And so I wouldn't let this week go by without saying and joining my colleagues in saying thank you. So the mayor has a citation for you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier. Martin, could you please come to the podium? No, right there is great.
Sorry, I thought. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the city, we'd like to offer you a citation. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby offers its sincere congratulations to Martin D. Bernier for going above and beyond on Thursday, January 16th, while at the School Street Light Truck Parts Store. You saved the life of Eddie Ray, who had suffered a major heart attack. He collapsed and his heart flatlined. The combination of your CPR skills, along with your caring and effective determination, helped to save his life. Now, I therefore, Mayor Rodney M. Elliott, along with all of my colleagues on the City Council, hereby offer all the best to you as a champion of the people for the heroic task that you performed for the good of our city. Given to you this day, the 28th of January, 2014, by myself and my colleagues in government. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I promise you they won't have to play the music to haul me off. It's just brief. Thank you very much, Mayor Elliott. Thank you very much, Councilor Mercier. I really don't know what to say. It just happened to be a strange set of circumstances. I would like to recognize my friend Raymond Gagnon. He was also with me at the time. And with his 40 years of work and security, he had the foresight to go outside the building and go out, stand on the corner of School Street to make sure that the EMT guys were there and that they came at the right spot. Again, I just thank him and thank you. And the best part about it is Eddie's sitting right
Eddie,
there.
can you come on up, Eddie?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. First time I saw him, he was flat on his back. The next time in the bed. This is the best way I like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Glad that you're with us. Great job, Counselor. Moving on with the regularly scheduled agenda. We have the minutes of the City Council meeting from the clerk from January 21st and the special meeting on the 21st for acceptance. Motion to accept by Council Martin, seconded by Council Leahy. Motion to place on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, under the city auditor portion of the agenda, is a communication. It's a response to a verbal request from Councilor Mercier regarding ways to avoid DOR watch list. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Belanger. Discussion, Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted this particular handbook, and I want to thank City Auditor Cheryl Wright for providing that to us. This is a ways to avoid being on the Department of Revenue watch list, and the auditor provided us with that particular handbook. I wanted the handbook so that I would be familiar with what the city's obligations are and what the city should be doing that would keep us off of the DOR watch list. I want the new auditor to know what the DOR expects from the city, and after going over the handbook, it appears to me that we're providing what they are requesting, and I'm more familiar with what our role is regarding financial matters. For example, the handbook defines the roles of each financial partner, the assessor, the auditor, the treasurer, the finance committee, and the clerk. And the handbook outlines executive session, public records, budgeting, and I thought that all this information would be helpful, especially to our new colleagues on the council. So this, it budgets the framework and what it should consist of. It addresses revenues, debt, capital policies, and operating expenditures, and I thought that it would be handy, and I thought that it would be helpful. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the city auditor for providing that to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion? Motion has been made and seconded to accept and place on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Not being 7 o'clock, we'll not go into the public hearings. Move on to item number 5, communications from the city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Questions on the motion? Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, I just had a couple of, I read the report on, from my motion for the parking problems around the city, and I see the Bridge Street parking and traffic, they're gonna address that with trying to open up 2 lanes of traffic during the morning hours.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Manager?
So that looks like that, a good possibility of working. The second part was the parking at the intersections. So, I can see the point about, I had made the suggestion about painting the curbs like they do in other communities, and most notably, probably warmer climates. California, for example, Florida, they have painted curbstones toward the intersection, so you know not to park on the red curb and whatever. So I think that's still an option we should look at. But the better enforcement around the neighborhoods would be a good start. I mean, especially we got an email from some people around the Bowers and Fletcher Street intersections. It is pretty congested around there, so until we start ticketing and people find other options, it's gonna continue to be a problem. And then I just noticed the Andover Street, Nesmith Street signal. I think we should pursue that for that left-hand turn as you're coming up Andover Street to turn onto Nesmith Street. With all due respect, I just see the wording is that they'll keep that in mind during the upcoming design meetings, but I think we need to insist that something happened there, even if it's 3 or 4 seconds, just to get 3 or 4 more cars to turn left and unclog that, because tempers are flying during the busy times over there. People just can't turn left, and tempers are getting high. So I'd like to make sure we keep that on the burner and make sure that that we push that issue and try to get that left turn signal.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you. There's a response in the packet to my motion about incubator spaces and what the city can do to encourage that, and I appreciate the response. I'd ask that that memo be referred to the Economic Development Subcommittee for further discussion and see what role, if any, the council can play in helping that along.
Motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Leahy to refer item A to the Economic Development Subcommittee. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Further discussion on the city manager communications. Seeing none. Motion has already been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next item, number 6, constable bonds. First bond, David Small. Second bond, Raymond Lammy. Third, Dale Elkins. Fourth, Manuel Barros. All for approval for a term from 1/7/2014 to 1/2/2017.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Council Kennedy, second by Council Belanger. Roll call?
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Item number 7, it's a vote to transfer $2,148 from Division of Planning and Development. Motion to waive the full reading by Counselor Rourke, seconded by Counselor Molinazzo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second reading by title, vote in City Council, order to appropriate $2,148 to replace missing stanchions on the median that divides westbound traffic on Middlesex Street and Wood Street. Motion to accept by, motion to approve by Councilor Molinazzo, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Item number 8, vote transfer of $12,500 from the election office. Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Mercia, second by Counsel Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second reading by title.
Before the second reading, Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Counsel Kennedy?
is the administration proposing an amendment to this transfer?
If I,
Mr. Clerk?
there was in the original vote that was sent down the package, Counsel, was a typo on the account number. The vote, that's just a correction of the typo that's on your desk this evening.
Okay.
I'll say Counsel Kennedy. Okay, second reading by title. Mr. Manager, do you have something to add? No, that was it? Okay. Second reading by title is a vote in City Council, ordered to transfer $12,500 to cover overages and projections until the end of the fiscal year in the election department. Motion to approve by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsellor Kennedy. Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Moving on to item number 9, it's an order for 60-day trial, University Ave. Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Kennedy, second by Counsellor Belanger. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Second reading by title, order in City Council pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Motion to approve by Councilor Samaras, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Mr. Mayor.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's no objection, I'd like to suspend the rules to allow 10 through 15 to come in all together. It's mostly the same, isn't it?
Motion by Council Mercia to take items 10 through 15 simultaneously. Second by Council Samaras. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Council Kennedy?
Mr. Mayor, earlier today, I had a conversation with Mr. Lang over at the school department, and he indicated that each of these votes should be taken up separately, rather than to be bundled together. But I'm in favor of the motion in the interest of time, if that's okay. Or, so can we hear from the clerk or the solicitor or from somebody on whether or not that's...
Mr. Manager?
Well, I leave it in the more astute hands of the clerk and the solicitor, perhaps, but I think if just joining them together for a single vote, they'd each still be individual votes, I would think, but all taken at once. But I will leave that to...
I would agree with you, Mr. Manager, but that is not what Mr. Lang was... I guess the school committee took them up each individually, Mr. Mayor, and so that's...
We did.
Yeah.
We did. I read one vote, and then the individual authorizing language.
All right, well, I don't want to, the whole idea of the motion is to move things along, so I don't want to.
Madam Solicitor.
A lot of rhetoric, so if we're okay, then let's just move ahead.
Right. The clerk and I had spoken about it today, and what I had advised is that although I believe it could be taken in as one legislative action, part of the actual voice vote would be to state that that the vote applies to each one of these as they are individually listed on the council agenda.
All set, Council Kennedy?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I will read vote number 10, the language that applies to all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items, and then we'll individually cite the schools that were being authorized. So item number 10, vote authorizing the superintendent to file a statement of interest with the Massachusetts School Building Authority under the Accelerated Repair Program, which provides funding for the repair and/or replacement of windows, roof, and/or boilers at the following schools: Green Elge Elementary, Lincoln Elementary School, McAvenue Elementary School, Merklin Elementary School, Butler Middle School, Pine Arts Magnet School. Motion to waive the full reading and the second reading by Council Milonazo, second by Council Mercia. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. And the opposed. Second reading by title. Vote in City Council authorizing the superintendent of schools to submit the statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for the Green Elge, the Lincoln, the McAvenue, the Merklin, the Butler, and the Pine Arts Magnet School. Motion to approve by Council Martin, seconded by Council Kennedy. Roll call.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Moving on to item number 16, it's a communication to appoint Zachary Ware to the Building Commission. Motion to accept the communication and place on file by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Mercia. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. And the opposed? Hold on, Council Martin?
Yeah, I'm not opposed, so we can finish the vote. I just had a comment.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. And the opposed? Motion carries. Council Martin?
It's not exactly the Green Building Commission, but in our packet was another notice about the energy aggregation contract that the city had entered into, and I meant to bring it up, but I guess this is appropriate because it is a fairly green contract. We're going to get 100% carbon or renewable energy sources, carbon-free renewable energy sources for Lowell ratepayers. But I think as noble as that is, what's more important is that it looks like there'll be a reduction of 2 cents per kilowatt hour for every Lowell resident. Is that, so I'd like, I know Mr. Moses had worked on this and we had talked about it last year, but it's good to see that this has come to fruition. And I think it's appropriate. I know over the weekend, I got 2 notices from power companies requesting that I sign up. So I think for the public, they should understand if they do nothing starting in April, they're going to get this 2 cent reduction. So just my congratulations, I guess, maybe to primarily Mr. Moses, but I know there were others involved, and maybe, Mr. Manager, you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Council. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilor, for noting that. This was an idea that the administration brought to the council last year, and it was the initial legwork was done by Mr. Moses. He spent quite a bit of time down in Boston, the Department of Public Utilities, but Mr. Bakey has been involved from the beginning as well, and has really taken it to the next step in terms of the green component, along with work by Mike Vaughn, our Chief Procurement Officer. We're very pleased with the results of this. Our commitment when we brought this forward, or the notion that existed when we brought it forward, was this: we have made such savings here in the city with going out and bidding our electrical, all of our utilities, both electricity and gas, and saved a considerable sum of money in doing so. And through a provision in the laws that went into effect back in the 1990s, communities can serve as an aggregator for their residents and small businesses. And we felt that there was an opportunity there to save the residents of the city and the small businesses of the city some money. And the results that we received were very positive with that 2 cents per kilowatt hour. But what makes it even more notable is, in fact, the green component. We now will be having all green energy for our residents and our small businesses and saving money. But the green component makes us, we believe, the only community in Massachusetts that will have totally green power for its residential and small business users. And, of course, that comes on the heels of the work we've done with making our buildings so energy efficient and putting renewables in place on several schools, putting one out at the old landfill site, at the water facility. We have solar over at the wastewater as well. So we're saving money, and we're also becoming more environmentally sound in terms of our carbon footprint. So we expect to receive some a good publicity on what we're doing here in the city, particularly being a leader in the Commonwealth. So thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Council Kennedy?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, I think that the administration should be commended for this initiative. And I think that Councilor Martin earlier mentioned that there would be a 2 cents reduction, which I think will translate into probably a 8 or 10% reduction in people's electric bill, right?
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken. So, so again, this is just a great initiative, and it's good to be. If we are the only one, then that makes it be even better.
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you to the council for supporting this when we brought it forward last year.
Council Belanger?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager. Well done, Mr. Manager, by you and the administration. It comes at a great time, seeing that National Grid just went up 30% on business rates, I can tell you that. So I'm seeking current alternative, the green alternatives myself. So it's good that we have that at our disposal. It's very important for businesses, and it's very helpful to all of us. So great job. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay, all set. Moving on to the report section of the agenda. Item number 17, wire inspector. National Grid underground electric conduit at 580 Chelmsford Street. Location as shown on the map is attached. Motion to accept the accompanying order on the motion by Council Samaras, seconded by Council Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. The opposed, motion carries. Council Marcia?
I hate to do it again, but I'd like to suspend the rules just to bring up an issue. I'm not making a motion, but I'm just bringing up an issue about the traffic situation, because I received quite a lot of calls about the congestion in the area that leads up to the Howe Bridge. Is there any way that I could just...
Motion to suspend the rules to discuss traffic patterns or traffic issues at the bridge by Council Marcia, seconded by Council Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, so ordered. Council Marcia on the motion.
Mr. Mayor, people have been calling my home, and it doesn't affect me because I don't go home in that area, but I'd like to bring up this important issue in the city, and that is the congestion in the area leading up to the new Howe Bridge. The Fletcher, Pawtucket Street, Salem Street area leaves many travelers and residents in a quandary as to the snail pace that's as they move from one point of the city to another, specifically around the hours at 3:30 p.m. right up until 6 o'clock. The traffic pattern is less than be desired, and the lights seem to not be synchronized in such a way that people are in place to their destination for 45 minutes waiting to move. There are no plans in sight to improve this particular dilemma. I just wanted to bring it to the attention through you to the city manager as to the traffic conditions in that particular area. People say that it's horrendous, and I wouldn't know firsthand, I don't go there. But if we could look at that corridor, well, I can't ask you to make a motion, a direction, but it's really a horrible situation for so many people.
Thank you, Counselor. I will attest that I do go through there, so I concur. Mr. Manager, any preliminary response as to, or Mr. Marchand, as to the patterns, how they can be corrected?
Initial thoughts on?
Council, I travel through that every day, twice a day. This week, with the return of school after this winter break, it was difficult. There was a light issue the other morning that I heard about, engineering coming out on the inbound traffic. There's still some construction going on. I think that's contributing to it. The cranes are moving the material around. But we'll check with DOT and make sure that the lights are synchronized at Fletcher, the new lights there and the new lights at the bridge, and see if there are any other outstanding issues that might be affecting the traffic. Prior to that, it was, at least in my experience in driving back and forth, it was pretty good. It had resolved itself after the initial opening, but we'll check it out and take a look.
Thank you, thanks, thank you.
Councilor Marchand. Henry, Mr. Marchand, could we look into the signal, the timing of the signals? Because it seems like that might be part of the problem. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor?
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. On the bridge issue, can I just, I travel that way too, and so I'm not a traffic engineer, but I like to play one. So I would, once they open up the other side of the bridge, going the sidewalk and everything, is there any way, I would think that 2 lanes going each way would work better. I don't know why we have the 1 lane and it opens up into 2 on both ends. We have the bike lanes there. Personally, I think the bike lanes are impeding traffic on the bridge. So I think in the springtime, we should look at that the way it's painted. And the other problem coming into the city, they're letting everybody from the construction site park down to the entranceway, the driveway of the hospital, the old hospital. So you're tying up that whole lane of traffic. So we got to look at that, because that's really stopping everybody the traffic coming through downtown at the end of the day, and even probably in the morning. Those are 2 things I noticed, because I go over there quite a bit, and I think the traffic on the bridge, the painting on the bridge really needs to be re-examined if we could. But for now, on the short term, again, just getting the cars and the trucks that are parked along the construction of the building, you need to get those moved.
Mr. Manager?
Well, Council, we can explore all of that. Certainly the construction workers, where they park is an issue that we can explore immediately and perhaps take some action immediately. The issue with the painting and I play traffic engineer myself from time to time, and so I know how it feels. The whole design was done by the state, and it is a state requirement now that they include. In fact, it's a state requirement for on a number of different levels that bike lanes are included. It wasn't just an issue that we did. That's a state mandate to do that, and they determined that basically a lane with a turn lane at each end was the best way of handling the traffic out there. I do think we'll see more once that other portion of the bridge opens up, though. So we'll follow up on both of those.
Thank you. Seeing as it's close to a little past after 7 o'clock, we'll go into the general public hearings. Item number 3, it's an ordinance to create a new position and salary, 1 outreach worker, the health department. It's grant funded. I'll entertain a motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Malinazzo, seconded by Councilor Murcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Second reading by title, ordinance in City Council and ordinance creating one new position and one salary of outreach worker at the Health Department. In City Council, January 2014, given second reading. I'll now open the hearing to those wishing to speak in favor. Those wishing to speak in favor. In favor, those wishing to speak in favor. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing. Those wishing to speak in opposition. Those wishing to speak in opposition. Seeing none, we will close that portion of the hearing. What is the wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Mercia, second by Council Leahy. Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Second item, second public hearing, ordinance, creating new positions and salaries for 1 NIBRS tracking analyst, 1 computer technician, 1 training administrator, 1 re-entry manager for the police department, grant funded. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Second reading by title, City of Lowell ordinance. In City Council, an ordinance creating 1 NIBRS tracking analyst, 1 computer technician, 1 training administrator, and 1 reentry manager, all full-time grant-funded positions, and establishing the salaries in the police department. What is the wish of the body? Oh, I'm sorry. First, let me open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. Those wishing to speak in favor? Those wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, that portion of the hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, that motion of the hearing is closed. Now, what is the wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Belanger. Discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
It's nine yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Moving to item number 18, under general petitions. There are 18 claims, 2 claims, number 18 for property damage. Motion to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation
So moved.
by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Belanger. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Item number 19, miscellaneous. Request by Grand Manor Condominium Association to address City Council regarding Grand Manor condominiums.
Mr. Speaker.
We have a speech, individual registered to speak.
Petitioner.
Petitioner. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Keith Parker, owner of 175 Willard Street, Unit 26. I'm not sure how many of you were on the council, but it's probably been, the issue found itself about October of 2008. We came here the first time somewhere in 2009. Since then, the city has done an environmental investigation with TRC and found, gross contamination around the entire property. And they've found everything from, soil problems to potential vapor problems. And now they've proposed a recommendation for installing a permanent subslab vapor extraction system underneath the entirety of the unit. And it's one of the tactics that they're taking. They're also stating that, you know, there's a portion of the property along the Willard Street side of the building that needs to be capped because, you know, there's contamination there, and it would prevent people from being able to go and be exposed in that area. And then around the rest of the property, we have a large landscape area. They're stating that the soil's okay down to 3 feet. You know, we know that there's areas around the property that's definitely not true. I mean, there's cars coming out of the ground, tires popping out, there's glass there. You know, from just years of it, you know, turning up, and, you know, the kids are still going out there and playing and whatnot. So that's kind of where we are now with the environmental stuff. They want to install a sub-slab system, saying that the top 3 feet is okay, and then capping a certain type of a certain portion of the property. Excuse me. And then what would happen is they would implement this sub-slab system, put a cap on the property, and then they would put a activation use limitation on the property. And what we've been told is that there's many properties around the city that have these activity and use limitations. I know that to be true, not denying that. The issues that we have is that there's certainly not properties in the city where they get put on, these get put on a property after units have purchased a property and lived there for 25 years. These are, you know, mill buildings where they have been completely remediated and done over. There's an activity and use limitation put on the property, and then when they're sold, that price is built into the value of those properties. That is definitely not the case for the Grand Manor, which is one of our biggest concerns about accepting an AUL on the property, you know, especially, you know, without resolving on our property damages, because certainly there's no guarantee if we arbitrarily accept an AUL, you know, how much will the property values rebound? There's no way to determine that, and it's not something that the Grand Manor could accept, you know, with, you know, given the fact that that's just bad business, you know, when you look at it from that perspective. You know, people have invested their life savings into these properties, and and now people have been stuck there for 5 years, not able to sell it, or not able to refinance it, because banks aren't refinancing them. There's been a lot of cash sales going on. I think the values are, you know, when I bought, they were going for $145,000, $150,000, and now there've been foreclosures and short sales for $35,000, and that's been consistent since this happened. The only refinancing that's being allowed on the properties are when people have other assets that banks can use as collateral, and other people are just being stuck there. So this is the issue we have with not being able to accept an authorization and use limitation in this moment in time. You know, having said that, you know, it's been quite evident. The city has held a few public meetings now where they've you know, discussed the environmental issues. However, whenever, you know, questions start going down a different road about, you know, property values and people's concerns, you know, we get shut down there at the meeting because we're here to talk about the environmental issue. Well, that's why we came here tonight, is because we need to talk about the other issues related to the property, specifically, the property values. We didn't want to. I don't know if everybody's aware, but we did file a claim against the city back in a couple years ago now. For these damages. We didn't want to do that, but we were led to believe that we would have some type of discussion about, our damages and whatnot. And it seems like since then, unfortunately, it's great that you guys are doing everything in accordance of the mass contingency plan and the Department of Environmental Protection here in the state, but you guys are kind of hiding behind that at this point. What we're going to do is, it's great what you're doing with the DEP, but the Grand Manor has concerns related to property values and their investments that really have not been discussed at all, and that's probably the biggest concern that we have. Let's see here. We're interested in seeing what state funds might be available to help out what people's property values are, the losses that they have, because certainly it's just with no guarantee of where property values will be in the future. It's we have no choice but to be where we are today. Let's see here, and then there's a few things that have happened, which might not, which kind of put a bad taste in the Grand Manor's mouth, if you will. So many years ago, when this first problem was first found, we were installing our decks, or we were putting in new decks in, and we had a permit and plan to go and put new sonotube footings underneath the entire deck. Well, when we found the contamination, that plan got thrown out the window, and we were explaining that we needed to do something about these decks for years, and sent emails, and it is what it is. But they sat on, unfixed for a few years, and they got more decrepit and falling down. And then in April of this year, an assistant building inspector from somewhere said he was driving by and he saw the condition of the decks, and he went back to the office, printed out a bunch of notices, and slapped them all on our sliders and said, "You cannot go out on your decks, they're unsafe, da-da-da-da-da." Made the city, or made the association pay for a bunch of repairs that weren't, which still wouldn't even bring it up to code, because the footings are still not, they're still not good. I have our property manager, Ed Fields, here, one of our property managers, and he'll speak more to some of the issues that we could be potentially having with the structure of the building. Again, another concern, if we get the decks, the structure of the actual building, and some other issues, related to operating a condo association on a former municipal landfill. Another thing that kind of put a bad taste in the Grand Manor's mouth is that it seems that the city's taken a legal tactic to say that a dump was never operated by the city at that property 5 years later, which kind of zings us the wrong way, especially when your environmental consultants has got up on the board a few times now, and at these public meetings that the environmental consultant has given us, and they have stated that here's the history of the property, and they say that what we know now is that it was formerly a quarry in the early 1900s. For years after, it was used as a landfill, and trash was thrown into this hole in the ground, covered up for a period of time. Eventually it closed and then sat vacant for about 30 years. And then the city sold this property for $10,000 to a developer, built the condo on it without following any of the environmental regulations, which were in effect at that point. It was in the early 80s. And it's kind of like, we know what happened there. So, we're spending all kinds of money now to try to find people that were there, aunts, uncles, grandfathers, dads, who may have seen this dump back in the day, saw the orange trucks driving in and out of it. Lord knows I wasn't around back then. But, that's kind of what, you kind of wanted to just give you guys some food for thought and kind of look at it, basically why I'm here is, to prompt a discussion between the city and ourselves about the other aspect of what's going on at the property. You guys we're happy. You guys have done what you need to do as far as the DEP goes. Granted, it's been by the books and, we're 5 years now, and now they're looking for closure and stuff like that. So it's taken the full amount of time allotted according to the mass contingency plan. But now we really need to talk about, our damages and whatnot. And, maybe we can have the city start spending money on, things that might actually make the Grand Manor happy besides just the environmental stuff. I'm going to pass the mic on to Ed Fields. He's our property manager, and he'll talk to you about some of the management problems that this could pose for us going forward.
Edward Field, property manager, Grand Manor. I'm from Chelmsford, Mass. One of the things that we have looked at is basically the city's refusal to address the structural end of the building with the environmental aspect. The city has cited Grand Manor for the decks, telling the residents they can no longer use it, but at the direction of the inspection department, we had the decks secured. However, they don't meet the code that has to do with the footings. One of the questions is, what is the long-term effects of the decks not having footings under them, and what's the cost going to be? These are residents of the city who at some point are going to have to pay for this. The building foundation, its cracks, the slab. So far, we've seen no building drawings on that from the engineering firm as to how they plan on putting this vapor extraction system in, how many holes, what impact it's going to have on the concrete. The building has been settling. There are cracks in the foundation, in the slab. Is that because of just the natural age of the building, or is it because of the settling of the stuff that's in the ground? One of the things that we're looking at, it might be one of the settling, is the parking lot. There are major sinkholes, major indentations in the parking lot. Some of them right now go down almost 2 feet. They're very large. Based on the direction of the engineers, we cannot dig that up and find out what's causing that problem and patch it correctly. All we can do is keep putting asphalt over it and just overlaying it over and over and over, which again comes to another cost for the association. But on the same hand, at what point does this become a sinkhole and just open up? Because we can't dig to figure out what's down there. If it becomes a sinkhole, who's going to be responsible? Who's going to be liable for it? In the worst case scenario, does somebody get hurt before we can figure out, what needs to be done? Some of the long-term problems is the equipment from the vapor evacuation systems that they want to put in. Who's going to repair them? What failures? What replacements? Once that's put on the building, the warranties for the siding, the roofing, general repairs from contractors coming in, these residents will no longer have any decent warranties that other people would get. And who would be the responsible party for these costs? The insurance, we've been already looking at the insurance, and one of the things is at this point, the master policy will not cover any vacuum extraction systems on the property. So we've already have to work at trying to amend that to cover the property, to cover the residents once, as this project proceeds forward. Then again, the long-term cost, the amendments to the insurance, every time you change your insurance, the policy goes up. To what cost? And going back to what Keith was saying about the property values, at what point does it cost more to live there than the property's actually worth? One of the things you have to keep in mind that these residents, never bought into this problem. They never knew of this problem, but they are now forcing to deal with this problem. The master deed, the condominium documents, the bylaws were never written to include a AUL. So all of these are going to have to be amended. These are very costly. There's a high percentage vote, a lot of attorney's fees. There's a lot of legwork involved, and these are just extra costs. By the time you add these all up, it's not worth, the cost of living there is just too high. And that's one of the things that we need to look at as a management company, because we need to budget this. We need to look at the long-term forecast of the property and how the budget's going to work going forward. And at this point, literally, they're going to need to take a second mortgage out just to pay the condo fees to live at a place where the values have already dropped. And how much further will they need to drop before something is done? Thank you for your time.
Sir, could I just get your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Edward Field. I'm Worthen Street, Chelmsford, Mass. I work for Riney Management Corp. on Fletcher Street in Chelmsford.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only comment I would make is that we are, I think both speakers made a number of points of concern that we certainly understand from the standpoint of working on this issue for the past number of years, and we're anxious to get this resolved as well. What's key to us, though, is being able to complete the work that needs to be done out there to identify. That's what's really has slowed us up, is getting the access agreements so that we can get in, figure out exactly what needs to be done, and then all these questions that were raised, and they're great questions, could be answered and addressed and discussed. And so that's, as far as the council goes, that's where we are on this, and what we're prepared to say at this time. But we have an executive session planned to talk about all of our litigation coming up, and this was on our list. So we certainly would like to talk to the council about it, but we would like to continue having dialogue with the Grand Manor residents as well as their attorneys in expediting this so that we can get all that work done, and then we will know all of our information, and then we can share that, and then we can sit down and iron out all these other issues that have been raised. That's really where we are now with that.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to accept the communication and place on file by Councilor Martin. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Martin.
I think, this is active litigation, I assume, right?
Yes.
Right? So I think the council's at least limited in what it can comment on right now, but I think the residents should understand we are concerned about this. We've had several meetings about this. It has been some time, so I think the timing is ripe for some further discussion among the councilors, which I think we will have with the administration to find out where we are. And we are sympathetic. Anyone who bought in didn't know they were buying into this problem, but we didn't know about it either. No one, I know we represent the city now, but when this happened 30-plus years ago, none of us were here. We do feel sympathy for these residents and would like to help, but it has to be done in a way that's affordable and fair to the rest of the residents of the city. So I don't want you to think you came down here and we just kind of ignored this. I think we will take this up in discussion and be back in communication with the residents in fairly short fashion. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mercia?
I must have had that look on my face,
did.
like a troubled look on my face, because I kind of put myself in their position as to how would I feel if this happened to me, And I know that we did go through this at great length.
Excuse me.
And I know.
And I apologize for interrupting, but
Oh.
again, I think that
Madam Solicitor.
Mr. Mayor.
And I know that it's in litigation.
Well, it is in litigation, and, you know, in a highly unusual move there, that we do have a presentation like this in light of the litigation, and particularly since sitting behind you, pens in hand, are their attorneys. And so, I would urge the council to, the manager did speak to it a bit. We were planning on discussing it, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We'll be taking it up very shortly, and I would urge you to leave it at that for now.
Well, here's my question.
Council Marcia?
Here's my question then.
Counselor, questions can be directed to council, to me. I think that it really is to the detriment of the city if there are any questions or discussions or anything of that nature in a public forum such as this. This is not the place for it. It's unfortunate that, this is what council perhaps chose to do, but they are represented by council. There is active means of communication. There has been, and there will continue to be. But this is not the proper form for communication, which their counsel is well aware of.
Counselor, okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Moving on to the next item is number 20. It's under miscellaneous. Request by Allison Larraba to address City Council regarding teaching civic engagement. Motion, Ms. Larraba, if there's no motion.
Thank you. My name is Allison Larraba, and I reside at 116 Featherston Ave here in Lowell, Massachusetts. There was a time when every student learned about their civic responsibility in the classroom. The importance of voting and being engaged in government at all levels was impressed upon them at an early age, as they learned about the struggles of women and minorities to obtain the right to vote, which had been guaranteed to men of property in the Constitution. In an age where voter turnout is poor, we need to show people that their votes matter, that their involvement matters, and that their elected officials listen to them and act in the best interest of the majority, not the minority. Sadly, this current council has seen failure on all three counts. In the short time since your inauguration, your main topics of discussion have been a manger. I won't even discuss the separation of church and state aspect, but I believe that time would have been better spent having multiple discussions on public safety and the placement of more police on our street. That is an issue that affects every resident of the city. Next, a portrait. I don't particularly care if any one of you is offended by a portrait. I would like you to be offended about the increasing drug problem in our city and the violence that accompanies it. And instead of wasting time appearing vindictive about where you will place the said portrait or establishing guidelines about future portraits, how about discussing ways to combat that drug problem? That is an issue that affects every resident of the city. And then, the city manager's ability to make appointments. It's simple. Either he can or he can't. But the farce that was last week's dealings with the manager's appointments was offensive on many levels. As a woman, it did not escape my notice that two men breezed through the confirmation process and the lone female candidate was tabled. As a person born in this country, I noted that the person who made a conscientious decision to become an American citizen was rebuffed. In a time where we are supposed to be judging people on their individual merit, not their connections, I learned that some members of this council have not caught up with the times, and a qualified candidate was dismissed because of who she was married to. If this action was meant as a slap in the face to the city manager, it wasn't. If it was meant as a slap in the face to evil blogger Jack Mitchell, it wasn't. If it was meant as a slap in the face to Salmira Mitchell, it wasn't. When a city councilor acts in a manner that fits their own personal agenda and not the best interest of the city and admits as much on the radio, it is a slap to every voter of this city. And I find that the most offensive thing of all. It is time for this city council to put on their big boy and girl pants, stop the pettiness and vindictive rhetoric, and get to work. You have a city manager to hire, hopefully a professional one and not a political one, a city auditor to hire, a budget to approve, taxes to hold down, and public safety issues to address. People have been shot. I know of at least one home that was invaded in broad daylight, and this council has been quiet on that front. These are the issues that affect all the residents of Lowell, and it is past time for this body to stop your own personal agendas and get down to work on the business of the people. I respectfully suggest that you do just that. Thank you very much.
Motion to accept the communication and place on file by Council Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, moving on to item number 21, request by Goldman and Curtis for Daily Realty Trust 1 for zoning change 219 Westview Road. Motion to refer to the law department to draft proper ordinance by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Belanger. On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Motion portion of the agenda. Motion. First motion, number 22. City Councilor Rita Mercia requests City Council Rules Subcommittee establish guidelines as to what the mayoral portrait should consist of. Second by Council Belanger. On the motion, Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Contrary to what the last speaker said, I will talk about the portrait. I will talk about the previous thing that I had, which was the Nativity Restoration Fund. It's still in progress because I believe these things. So if this is my personal agenda, so be it, because it reflects a lot of the opinion contrary to what the last speaker said anyway. But in regards to this motion, I never thought that I'd see the day that someone would have to make this motion on asking the Rules Subcommittee to outline a guide on what the mayoral portrait should look like, outlining who should be on the mayoral portrait. I guess since there's no rule that says that we should come a little bit sophisticatedly dressed up, then I almost thought that maybe I should have worn my pajamas and my slippers, because there's nothing that says that we, how we should dress this evening. But I did look at the budget, fiscal year 2014 proposed budget, and it says the budget statement as prepared by the former city mayor. The mayor's office budget increased $7,172 over the previous year's budget. This is due to contractual obligations, step increases, as well as the allocation for the mayor's portrait. It says the mayor's portrait. It doesn't say the mayor's family portrait. As far as that picture, it's a beautiful picture. It just doesn't fit in this setting here. It belongs on his mantle somewhere in his home. It is a mayoral portrait, not a family portrait. It's not a reality show of keeping up with the Kardashians. It's not about making your last statement to the public. It's not a portrait about turning your back to the public. It is supposed to be about the person that was chosen to be the leader of the city council, leaving in a dignified way. Although we know that, at present, there is no official rules in place, it was a given that one should be charged with making the right decisions, but then again, people possess certain attributes, but in some cases, common sense is not one of them. So it leaves us to realize that down the road, someone else may make a decision just because there's no rules in place and may decide to stand in the council as the mayor and be scantily clad or give the public a derogatory salute in the portrait. This picture has taught me a lesson, and let us not be caught with our whatever. So I'm making this in the form of a motion that this be referred to the Rules Subcommittee so we can outline what the mayoral portrait should be, because if someone has this opinion in this day and age, and this is modern art, then I don't know, I'm not going to allow this to happen unless we have rules in place to completely guide the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. There's a registered speaker.
Alex Tagbayeo?
It's Alexandra Tubielli. The G is silent, but it's, my maiden name was Ward, so a lot of times people ask me, really, did you have to change it? So I wanted to say
Could you
firstly,
state your address too, please?
sorry, my address is 33 Middle Street. Again, Alexandra Tubielli, 33 Middle Street.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say good evening to you, City Council, and Mayor Elliott, and to those of us that remain in the chamber, as well as the other officers whose names and title escape me. I've had the opportunity before to speak within City Council chambers regarding different topics, and I do consider it an honor and also my personal duty to be an active participant in the political process, especially on the local level. And I first would like to thank you all for your time and your attention this evening. I'd also like to share that previously my experiences after publicly sharing my opinion have not always been great. I was approached recently by several informal acquaintances on separate occasions who had different opinions than those that I voiced at those other city council meetings. I've been challenged, my judgment has been questioned, and I've been told directly that my opinion didn't count or matter because I didn't agree with what they had to say or what was right according to Lowell or true Lowellians or real Lowellians or the tradition of this city. I mention this because I think it's relevant to the conversation about this portrait. By going on record before and by choosing to go on record again tonight, I know that I'll probably be immortalized in some YouTube archive somewhere on the internet with this proof of me speaking and showing my opinions for all to see and to critique. To assume that this will have no impact on how people look at me or treat me or my family is foolish. But speaking as a citizen, a voter, and an everyday person who doesn't hold an office, I have felt negative repercussions for voicing a different opinion. Is that fair? No. Is it right? I would also say no again. But it is what it is, and unfortunately, the desire for calm in your own personal life or self-preservation often takes precedence over choosing to engage in the political process, which again, I respect. But this is a problem that I feel like that we're dealing with not just in the city or in the state or even in this country, but I think globally. That being said, and knowing how difficult it is to voice your opinion, I'd like to take this time to applaud the City Council for shouldering the responsibilities and the thankless job often for being the voice of the community and representing the needs and the wants of the people, especially when you are subject to criticism and scathing opinions. But I'm here this evening to share my opinion on the portrait of former Mayor Patrick Murphy. I wanted to share my opinion about this portrait and related matters because, and I could be mistaken, I am concerned that my opinion isn't currently being reflected within this council. Some of the concern for wanting to create guidelines for the mayoral portrait is that not doing so could give future leaders the option to have portraits of them however they wanted to be shown, including scantily clad representations of themselves. And I've talked about this with some of my coworkers and some of my neighbors, and most of the ladies agree that if by some crazy chance Tom Hardy or Brad Pitt was mayor and he wanted to be scantily clad, they would agree with that picture. I think even in that scenario, despite my personal opinion, that would still be inappropriate, and I empathize completely with where that concern comes from. But in this specific case regarding Mayor Murphy's portrait, I don't feel that his picture, or the picture that he chose, could be put into that category. On a personal note, when I first saw the portrait, the first thing I noticed was how different it was from any other portrait that I've seen in our city hall or any other official portrait in a government office. I did pause and reflect on the past 2 years with Mr. Murphy as mayor of our city, the impact that he had on our city, and what we as Lowellians and citizens of the world can learn, good and bad, if you will, from his legacy. I also thought about what he highlighted in his portrait and why he did so, and what exactly he wanted to be remembered for. All of these things, I would assume, are a part of the purpose and the tradition of mayoral portraits. On a further personal note, as a relatively new parent, I was immediately and deeply touched in a truly positive and meaningful way by Mayor Murphy's choice to include his family in this portrait. I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially I read or watched again on a YouTube video that Councilor Mercier, and I'm not singling you out personally, but just for the purpose of this speech, said that choosing to include his family in his portrait was odd because, and again I'm paraphrasing, because it was the city council that elected him to be mayor and not his family. And though that is true, when I saw the portrait, I was reminded that family is extremely important to the everyday lives of everyday Lowellians, as well as our elected officials, because it is our families that are the first to support us when we choose to enter any line of service, whether it be in the military or civil servants. And it is our families who get to celebrate with us and sit in the front row when we are inaugurated. And it is your families who give you the strength and the support that we need to make decisions that may be unpopular, and your family that provides you the support to deal with those consequences and those scathing comments that we frequently get for speaking up for what we believe in. I'm sure by now that many of you are thinking that I'm pro-Murphy, and in truth, I did vote for Patrick Murphy. In this past election, I voted, and I was honored to vote for several of you, and I would do it again. I do have an opinion on Mayor Murphy's tenure, but I'm not here to talk about how I feel about him personally. I felt compelled to speak in front of all of you tonight because I'm concerned that the strong and passionate opinions of some Lowellians, which they would have a right to, ultimately will lead to the unfair restriction of others who have differing opinions. Choosing to reject this portrait because it's different than what we traditionally see, because we don't like how it makes us feel or we don't understand it, is choosing to silence someone else's opinion of their experience or their life. And I think that is a dangerous and destructive message. And I honestly don't believe that anyone on our city council would intentionally send a message like that to not just the people of the city, but people who are watching and paying attention to what we do. The suggestion that former Mayor Murphy has turned his back on the city or people in the city, and that he needs to be told how to act, or that his portrait should be displayed in a location away from the public eye because, to some, he's an embarrassment or a poor reflection of the city council, to me, personally, I feel like is a slap in the face to people who are supporters of the mayor and maybe share some of his opinions, or just share his opinions and may not be his supporters. I think that it sends a clear message to those with opinions that differ from the city council's or what is popular to actual Lowellians, that they have no place or need to be told what to do, or that they may not actually be Lowellians. Our city is not deserving of this message. Our country isn't deserving of this message, and nor the implications and consequences of that. So finally, I'd like to urge you all to proceed cautiously should you choose to decide to consider changing the guidelines for the mayor's portrait, especially when the motivation could be interpreted as having strong roots in personal sentiments that citizens may have very different and strong opinions about. As the home of a thriving community of artists and birthplace of artists of time since past, like James McNeill Whistler, Betty Davis, and controversial celebrities like Jack Kerouac, art has and continues to play an important part in the legacy of our city. Just on the logo above you, Mayor Elliott, it reads that art is the handmaid of human good. Portraits are forms of art that tell stories that outlive their subjects. Changing the guidelines for mayoral portraits will subject our current and future leaders to shape their legacies according first to the opinion and will of others. It is a bold, bold gesture to impose one's own beliefs upon the sharing of the legacies of another. We will always have differing opinions of those we choose to elect or recognize as leaders and what they do and what they don't do. But I don't believe that anyone has the right to police the area or opportunity that others have where they can decide how they are recorded in history. I'd like to thank you all again for your attention and your time, and most importantly, to your service to all of the people in the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? I can assure members of one thing: there will be no scantily clad portrait next term. Councilor Mercia?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support the motion to send it to the Rules Subcommittee, but it was my understanding that this was looking forward, not looking back. So I know the speaker indicated that we might be setting up guidelines to prevent this Mayor Murphy's portrait from being hung. That's not my understanding. And when I saw Mayor Murphy's portrait, I was surprised, but I was not offended. In looking at it and reflecting upon the picture, if you will, we have to remember that he was a public official for 4 years. He met his wife, Allegra, while he was a city councilor. He married Allegra. They had a beautiful son together, and he chose not to run for re-election. So to me, he was just moving on to the next chapter in their lives, and that's why I think the family was included in this picture. Again, to me, it's really not a portrait because it's just not the mayor having, like some of us here have had done, and hanging in City Hall. But again, getting back to my original comment, I'll support the motion, but it was not my understanding that this was going to look back and say to Mayor Murphy, you cannot, based upon these new guidelines, hang that picture in City Hall, because it's not my understanding that was the case. But I could be wrong, but again, I will support it going to the Rules Subcommittee to establish guidelines going forward. Thank you.
For discussion, Councilor Lee, could you just take the chair for a second, please?
Mayor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I did just want to make a couple of comments on conversations that I've had with prior mayors, some here in the chamber and some not, because it's a responsibility, as I understand it, or that I am learning, that because it's part of the mayor's budget in the past, that the responsibility lies with myself. So I did reach out to Council Martin, Council Milonazo, former mayor and current state senator Eileen Donahue to say what is the protocol, and there are no guidelines. I believe that's what the challenge is. If there is a protocol, at this point, as far as all the mayors that are here and not, it was just moving portraits to some degree where they'll fit and where they're hanged. There really is no rhyme or reason to where they go outside of the most current, tend to hang outside, has been the practice of hanging outside, and then they just kind of get shifted all over the place. So what was interesting, the Senator Eileen Donahue, when I spoke to her, indicated at the State House, there's an advisory committee with mayor for Senate President portraits, and they established some guidelines. There's also an historical society at the State House, so it might make some sense to, and she suggested maybe going to the Whistler House, maybe to the historic board for some guidelines, some protocol on what to put in place, so there will not be this confusion. And there have been, there's been confusion from prior mayors that I have spoke to. So I think it makes some sense. I think it's a good motion. The line item does say mayoral portrait, and the definition of a portrait is an image of an individual. So it does make some sense that to be consistent with right to this first portrait here in the chamber, that it's a portrait of an individual's face. So, moving forward or not, it's taxpayer money, and it was for a portrait, and I think it should be for a portrait. So, but I'm going to support the motion anyway, because quite frankly, I don't know what to do with it right now as the current mayor. Is it just to go along with what has been done in the past? It's not consistent. It doesn't have a frame. It's just on a canvas. It's not matted. Not that the others are matted. So I'm kind of looking for guidance, Council Malinazzo, as to what to do with this particular picture. Because, again, it's not framed, and in its current condition, it's just there's two hooks and it's supposed to be hung. So I just wanted to, add that to the discussion, that I'm at least for sure looking for some guidance on what to do now. So we do have many more issues, but this clearly has been an issue, by the way, in the past for prior mayors, and it's good that it's being brought to the forefront.
Thank you. If you take the seat and then switch.
Any further discussion on the Council Leahy?
Thank you. I wasn't really going to say anything, but I did just want to say thank you to the speaker for coming down. I did meet you during the election, and I want to encourage everybody to come down and say what's on their mind and be involved in the process. I'm going to support the motion only because I'm looking at the traditional meaning of a portrait. Portrait is, contains the person's face and their expression, and by the traditional definition, that's why I'm supporting this. It's a good picture. I don't mind anybody being different, but I think for this purpose, we were just looking for a traditional portrait of the mayor, and that's all, and that's why I'm going to support this.
Further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next item, under motions, Council Kennedy. Request City Council Rules Subcommittee review the City Council rules, including Rule 22, and report back to the full City Council with any recommendations. Second by Council Belanger. Council Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I think this is probably a worthwhile exercise for every council to do at the beginning of their term, and this council is in the first month of its term. Last week, I think there was some confusion about the interpretation of Rule 22, and so that's maybe one that could be, maybe the language could be cleaned up or made a little clearer, and that's it. So it's that's all. It's just, it's probably good at at the beginning of every Is everybody all set?
Sorry, Councilor, he took my glasses.
Anyways, I just think it's a good exercise for the Rules Committee to do at the beginning of every council session, and that's the reason for the motion.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion? Council Martin.
I used to leave my wallet up there. I'd caution you against doing that in the future. So.
I barely got through Council Kennedy's motion, so I'm glad I got through it. Further discussion on Council Kennedy's motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next item, Council Leahy. Request City Manager provide an update regarding construction on Kearney Square Bridge. Seconded by Council Rourke. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I'm just looking for an update. I do read the weekly updates, but I know that, I thought they were supposed to take a break, and I see that they're not. So I just wonder if we could get an update with new dates of completion and all that. So that's really what I'm looking for. So it looks like the process is going to be sped up by quite a few months, since they're going to work right through the winter on it. So,
Mr. Manager?
We'll get that report and, to the council.
thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Up, Councilor Samaras.
To the city manager, construction like that is very important to the city, I know that, but it also causes great hardships to the businesses at hand. Do we take any steps to help them out during those times? Because sometimes I've seen some of the construction sites that completely block off a business or other things, and we need to support our businesses in the city.
Mr. Manager?
Councilor, I couldn't agree more, and that, of course, is not a public construction project. That's a project that's being undertaken by Enel, but before they were allowed to move in there and do that work, we worked closely with the businesses in that area and all around that area with a number of meetings to do the best we could to ensure that there was access and there was adequate parking in the area. So we try to do that. Very successful meetings. In fact, some of the councilors will remember that at one point in time, the intention was to really close down one side completely and really just have one-way traffic for a portion of time and with a detour around a different way. But we were adamant that both lanes had to stay open during the construction, so because the businesses in that area needed that. So we certainly take the businesses into consideration.
Thank you for that.
Takes place.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, it's my recollection when we began the project that the duration was going to be approximately 9 months. That's what I recollect. And then it was held up because there was a problem beneath. And so maybe I've lost time of the schedule, but I guess part of the update would be there must be an estimated time of completion, and that would be, I think everybody's looking forward to that. It seems that the way it is now, when it was on the other side, I think it seemed to be a little bit, the traffic seemed to flow a little easier. It's pretty tight. I went through there this evening. That's a tight little, there's two-way traffic, but you got to watch your mirror.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to say and don't hold me to this, but I want to say that it's supposed to be completed by June, late June timeframe, maybe early July, but before the Folk Festival comes back in. But we'll double check on that. I think one of the issues on this side, the way it's been closed off now, may have to do with some of the sidewalk issues on that other side, but we'll follow up on that as well.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Item number 26 by Councilor Belanger. I'm sorry, what?
25.
Oh, 25, oh, I'm sorry, it's 25, Councilor Leahy again. Request city manager provide report regarding incident on East Merrimack Street on January 17th. Seconded by Councilor Martin.
Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
If we could get a report when we have the public safety meeting with the police chief in a week or so. There was an incident there, a shooting, and I'd just like to get a full report because that discussion will definitely come up, and we want to have as much information on it as we can while we go through the public safety. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Let me, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council, we'll certainly get whatever information the chief can provide at this point on that, but we'll get that out to the council.
Okay. And I should add, too, that, it's an unfortunate incident that happened. It was handled and arrests were made.
Right.
Couldn't have happened any faster. So they did great work on it. But again, it's something we want to discuss and see if there's a way to prevent things like this happening. Thank you.
Further discussion on Councilor Leahy's motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Now moving on to Councilor Belanger's motion, item number 26, request city manager provide an update on redevelopment of the Rialto building. Second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Belanger.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I realize this project was just recently updated in the news media in mid-December, or right around that time. But I do want to brief, as chair of the Economic Development Subcommittee, that, it is concerning that, Middlesex Community College acquired this property in 2007 for the use of theater, arts, and classrooms, which is great, I recall when I was in business on Jackson Street, my fellow businessmen were very excited about the project, how, it would bring people to the area, and we were looking quite forward to it because that building was vacant for a long, long time. So we were all very excited in anticipation, but here we are, 2014, and a nail hasn't been banged yet. So, I would like to reach out to the folks, Mr. Manager, if you could, at Middlesex Community College, and kindly offer, our city service. What can we do to help? But from my standpoint as city economic, that's a long time. I'm sorry, it's concerning to me. It seems like it's going forward. Funding has been secured, and that's great. But, I think we need to keep in better touch with project managers throughout the city, Hamilton Canal, buildings like this, so that we may touch base periodically. How's things going? Are we on track? Rather than just lose somebody, take possession of this building, which I might add, I believe was from the national parks for $1, where they acquired the building. So it's just, it's exciting. It's finally going to happen, but that's a long time from a city standpoint. So I just would like an update, Mr. Manager, so I can, it's probably not going to deviate from what was in the newspapers, I'm hoping. And so I can put it in my records, and then 6 to 9 months from now, have a city official reach out to them. How are we doing? Are we on track? Are we set to begin construction in 3 months or so? So I just think periodic conversations with project managers are necessary to keep economic development starts with existing businesses and existing projects. So it's important we keep them going forward, and communication's a vital part of that. So I'm not saying you haven't been doing your job. I'm not throwing stones. I'm just saying from here forward, that's what I'd like to see with evidently the powers to be. So if you could kindly reach out, Mr. Manager, and get us an update, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Belanger, for bringing this up. The situation, I think, with we'll certainly get that report, and I don't think it's going to deviate much. The biggest issue I think that Middlesex had their eye on that building for some time. Of course, the National Park had it for a number of years, and nothing was done with it at all. They transferred it over to Middlesex Community College for the $1, so that Middlesex would have control of it, so that then they could approach the state government, of which they're a part, to obtain the necessary funding to move it forward. It took some time to get it through, through the state government appropriation process and bonding process. And I know that, Senator Donahue did quite a bit of work over the last year or so in getting that moving forward, because it had been sort of stalled out for lack of support, and I know it was a priority when she came on to make that happen. But I think the state economy, the national economy certainly played into that as well. It's not a case that when Middlesex bought the property that they had the money in hand to then move forward. They just got control of it so that they could then go through the higher education system to get the money allocated to them. And that's really the case, because we did have regular communications with them during that entire process and lent whatever support we can to help them along with that. So, but we will get an updated schedule on that and where they stand. I think it's about a 3-year project now, because all the engineering has to be done, architectural work, and then they'll move forward with construction beyond that. But it's good to see that project moving forward.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that the funding's in place for this at this point, but that the problem is that there was no room for the mechanicals in the building. and so they had to get an easement or some sort of agreement with the person that owned the parking lot behind the building, is that what's been
I think
holding
that
it up?
has come following following some of that, but the real issue was the funding, getting the funding in place. The funding just came about over the last several months.
Okay, but the agreement with the parking lot, the person that owns the parking lot and the funding is all in place now, so that the project should be able to move forward at this point, right?
Once the architectural work is done, and then they can do the necessary bidding and get it out and do with that, yes.
If they knew that they didn't have room for the mechanicals and that they needed to have the parking lot, then the architectural work must have been done, right? Or they wouldn't know that.
Again, I think that I don't think the architectural work is completed yet. That was part of what maybe the preliminary planning that they needed to put in place. But the full architectural designs, and my understanding, are not completed. So,
Okay.
but I will follow up on that.
Okay. You know, Council Belanger might think that this would be one that should go to the Economic Development Subcommittee as well, so that it can just sort of stay there and we can get periodic updates on that from the subcommittee rather than, rather than bring it into the council, every few months. It's his motion, so it's up to him, but that might not be a bad idea.
To the maker of the motion?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we refer this to the Economic Development Subcommittee.
Okay, so motion to amend by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Belanger, to amend the original motion to send this to the Economic Development Subcommittee. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. And the opposed? Motion carries. Council Leahy, take the chair, please. Thank you.
Okay, item number 27, motion by Mayor Elliott, requests that the Public Safety Subcommittee meet with the new police superintendent to begin discussion of implementation of community policing. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Kennedy. Mayor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I did want to put this motion on the agenda because I do think it's a positive message that the Chief Taylor has spoken about in the past, and just by virtue of seeing the police officer in the newspaper recently, his commitment to community policing and reviving community policing is true. I think it's admirable that we have a picture of a police officer on a bicycle in such freezing cold weather, patrolling the neighborhoods, reaching out, though it might be a little bit limited with people being indoors, but I do think it's, the process to reconnect with residents in the city is a positive one. So I've had a preliminary discussion with the chief of police, and Mr. Manager, I'm sure you know that through his reorganization, he's about to roll out, and part of that reorganization is a component with community policing. So I think it's very positive news, and I just want to make this motion to send it to the subcommittee and have that discussion, and a good opportunity for the manager and the chief to roll out, or at least present to the subcommittee and the city council what's taking place with community policing. So that's the intent of the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Mayor, I think this is a great motion. I think, as you know, that, well, as you certainly just indicated, you knew, and I know all the councilors know, because we had some discussions about this. There is a reorganization. Community policing was a priority that I had when I made the selection of Superintendent Taylor. And I think it is a great opportunity with the reorganization that he and I have been talking about, and that I've indicated my approval of, that we have this meeting. I think the council will be very impressed with the actions that are being taken by the superintendent. So I think it's a great idea.
Great.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Belanger.
Yes, through you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I support the motion. I think it's a great motion because I believe wholeheartedly that in previous years we've strayed away from community policing, and that's part of the problem we have. The violence in the city, I believe, is a result of that. I recall being downtown, several police officers on foot years ago, and in the neighborhoods, active in the precincts. Well, now the precincts seem to be just decals on windows. There doesn't seem to be the foot patrol we once had. But I did meet with Superintendent Taylor along with Councilor Rourke. We had a very productive meeting. He does have a great plan that's going to be unveiling very soon. That was very, very positive. I think he's going to be getting back to that. I think it's very important. It's a very important issue because without public safety in the city, we can forget economic development, we can forget tourism, we can forget all of that. It all starts with being safe. So this issue is paramount. Despite what a speaker said this evening, we are focused on public safety, and there will be initiatives on the table in the coming months. So I look forward to the discussion, and I also sit in the Public Safety Subcommittee as well, and there will be dialogue on this issue. So I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras?
Sorry about that. I welcome this motion, but I'd like to maybe add to this motion in the sense of it's important that the chief sits down with the subcommittee on safety and has his discussions. But I think once the discussion has been completed, I'd like to have the superintendent of police make a presentation to the full city council so it can be televised and the people of the city can listen in, because I think a lot of people are concerned about safety in their neighborhoods, and I think it's very nice to hear from the man who's in charge of that what's going on. But I like the idea of going to the subcommittee on safety so they can deal with those issues and have the discussions. But I'd also like to see and create the possibility of the chief coming before the city as a whole again to make his presentation. I think it will help.
Thank you. So, amendment to the motion?
I have no objection to that.
Okay, so, little help. Second,
Perhaps that can be just a report out of the subcommittee that after the discussion that the subcommittee can bring that report with the chief of police to the full body of the council.
However you
Okay.
choose, that's fine.
all right, so no motion, we'll just add that to your original motion. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 28, motion by Mayor Elliott, requests that City Council vote to request City Manager hold further appointments until the new manager is hired. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Mayor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. In light, we've had, there was a motion a couple of weeks ago about appointments, and then there were appointments last week. There was discussion. I just thought it was, I thought, as we have done in the past, and I continue to think along the same lines, that knowing that we've initiated a new city manager process, and we're in the midst of that process, that it might be a good idea just to hold off on further appointments for the new city manager. These are long-term appointments, and the individuals provide and play an important role on many, not only the regulatory boards, but also, other commissions. So, again, we've done it in the past, and they're long-term appointments, so I believe it's a good practice. I think it's a good policy that we hold off on these until the new city manager comes in. So that's the intent of the motion. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any further, Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I understand the reason behind Mayor Elliott's motion. I hope at this particular point in time, since the manager announced that he's leaving, that he's gotten a message from this council that we may be concerned, some of us may be concerned with some of the appointments, long-term appointments, but in my opinion, if it violates the charter, it's not a motion that I could support. Ironically enough, and some of my colleagues who were on the council back in 2006, I actually supported a motion just like this back 8 years ago. And again, in this business, you can't have a do-over, but in thinking about it, I'm not sure that was the right vote for me back 8 years ago. So I guess I'm not being consistent since I'm not going to support this motion, but I really believe that after it's been discussed for the last 3 meetings, our city manager has gotten the message. But from the standpoint of being able to run the city, if we have vacancies that impact, and again, as I sit here today, I don't know if we do or we don't, that we may need to bring appointments forward. But I would suggest, in the spirit of what the mayor is trying to achieve here, that you do get the message, and you probably won't be bringing many appointments forward, but just by virtue of it may be a violation of the planning charter, I don't plan to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I do think it's a violation of the charter to do this. However, it is not my intention to, that's one of those things, I'm not waving a violation of the charter thing around. It is my intention to not bring any further appointments moving forward unless there's an emergency. If there's some situation that we need to get someone onto a regulatory board in particular, then I would notify the council and bring that in with that in mind, because I think the operation of the city is crucial. But I concur with the notion that we should let the next manager make those appointments, and I have no intention of bringing any other appointments in at this time.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, the way the motion is worded is the motion is a request, so I wouldn't see it really, the motion itself, as being a violation of the charter in itself. But and I intend to support the motion, but I do think, the caveat for me was going to be if there were any appointments that were compelling, where there was a compelling need, that the manager would understand that maybe he should come forth with those and see if the council agreed that it was compelling. But it seems like we have general agreement, and so I think we should probably just pass a motion and move on.
Thank you. Councilor Belanger?
Yes, through you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just want to say, Mr. Manager, you are the manager here until March the 10th, okay? And you need all the powers within the scope of your authority to manage the city efficiently. I understand that, but I do appreciate you conceding here and coming forward and not willing to make any more further appointments. I do appreciate that. I do support the motion, but I see problems that could arise from appointments, Mr. Manager. They could potentially divide this council, and essentially I've already had to say no to some good people, and I don't want to have to do it again. So I do appreciate your thoughtfulness, and again, I am here to cooperate with you to the fullest till March the 10th. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Mayor Elliott?
I just want to be clear that I specifically did word the language as a request. And that's what it was about. And I was consistent the last time this came up because I thought it was a good policy then and a practice. And I think it's a good policy now that the new city manager should have the ability and not have his hands tied or be his hamstrung with appointments coming in saying, well, I don't agree with some of the philosophies of individuals, but what do you want me to do? Those appointments are long-term, they have lasting effects. So that's why I put it forward, and I think it makes sense, and the manager concurs. So it's I specifically did not want to violate the charter. I understand the authority delegated to the manager through the charter. So, I just want to reinforce that. That's the only reasoning behind it. And I did the last time, so I thought to be consistent, I should bring it forward again. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Roll call on the motion.
Okay. Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
No.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Mayor Elliott, second by Councilor Kennedy.